35 News Edge at 6 starts now.
Get on your face! Get on your face! Get on your face!
Guns drawn, tensions high, an alleged killer tackled in the street.
They killing me! They killing me! Let me go! Let me go! I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Newly released body cam of the suspect's takedown. The gun hidden in Keith Moses' pant leg. And as deputies cut it out, they immediately notice it's still hot.
It's hot, still hot.
Good evening, welcome. Now, since the alleged murder weapon was still hot, ballistics experts say it was likely fired only about 10 to 15 minutes before that takedown.
And we just got this new mugshot of that suspect, Keith Moses, in the past hour. He is currently in the Orange County Jail being held on no bond. Moses is accused of shooting 5 people, killing 3 of them. Spectrum News 13 reporter Dylan Lyons was killed, and his photographer Jesse Walden is still in critical condition tonight.
Also, 9-year-old Tiana Major was killed. Her mom still in the hospital. And the woman killed yesterday morning has now been identified as 38-year-old Natasha Augustine. And we continue our full coverage of that shooting spree with live team coverage throughout the hour as we dig deeper into this case. We begin with Fox 35 anchor Ray Vieta.
He is joining us live outside the Orange County Sheriff's Office tonight. And Ray, there are still so many questions surrounding the shooting spree.
Luann and John, so many questions and so much heartache. You know, we can all see ourselves in the victims, a young journalist out to get a story, a 9-year-old girl with her mother inside her house, a 38-year-old woman driving around the neighborhood. Those are the victims killed in this violent spree that unfolded yesterday in Pine Hills. In fact, I want to walk you through those victims now. Spectrum News reporter Dylan Lyons. He was killed along with photographer Jesse Walden, who's in critical condition tonight. 9-year-old Tiana Major and her mom were shot in their home near the scene. Tiana had just come home from school. Just imagine that for a second. The little girl died. The mom is still in the hospital. The woman killed yesterday morning has been identified as 38-year-old Natasha Augustine. Jesse posted on social media just a few hours ago saying he had surgery and is doing okay, but he lost one of his best friends. Jesse is in the hospital at this hour. We wanted to learn more about the victim, Dylan Lyons, the young reporter. And for more on that, let's turn to Fox 35's Dave Puglisi, who went to his alma mater, UCF. Dave?
Right here at UCF, the memorial outside the School of Communications continues to grow. People have been coming all day in order to pay their respects. I've talked to some of his former professors who tell me that they're devastated at the loss of one of their own.
Very confident that he wanted to do this for a living.
It was clear to professors at UCF School of Journalism that Dylan Lyons was going to be something special.
He was always front and center in every class. Always engaged fully 100% in discussions, in debates we would have.
Lyons graduated in 2019, moving quickly up the ranks and landing a job at Spectrum 13 News in Orlando.
And the fact that Dylan made it to Orlando was a big deal at 24. The fact that Dylan won awards at 24 already, journalism awards, just made him a true success story.
Dylan and his photographer Jesse Walden were in an unmarked car covering a murder on Hialeah Street in Pine Hills when both were shot. Dylan did not make it. Investigators believe the shooter was 19-year-old Keith Moses, but don't know if he was targeting the news crew.
Along with the first responders, journalists are often the first to, kind of just run to the scene, and the goal is just to inform the community.
Danielle Hendricks also graduated from UCF's journalism program. She never thought something like this would happen to a fellow journalist.
Kind of like a family here with the UCF journalism community, so I just figured I wanted to come over and just pay my respects.
Ray, as you mentioned, the photographer Jesse, excuse me, will be okay. Now, we also know that students here, according to professors, will be holding a vigil for Dylan in the coming future here. But that's the latest in Orlando. Dave Puglisi, Fox 35 News. Back to you, Ray.
Dave, thank you. And you know, what we heard in that interview really stands out to me, that the community, the journalism community here in Central Florida really is like a family, and that's why so many of us are feeling the heartache of what unfolded The other piece of this tragic puzzle is a 9-year-old girl and a mother who were inside their own home when that gunman walked in and opened fire, killing that 9-year-old little girl. She had just gotten home from school. Fox 35's Valerie Boyd joins us from ORMC with that horrific story. Valerie.
Hey there. Well, relatives tell me that the mother of that 9-year-old is doing okay here at ORMC, but they are just devastated over the family's loss.
Everybody is heartbroken. Everybody around here knew that little girl.
Neighbors say 9-year-old Tiana Major had just gotten home from school when she was shot and killed inside her Pine Hills home. Now deputies are investigating.
A bubbly, happy little 9-year-old. She was out there the other weekday raking leaves with her mom and dad, and you could see the joy in her face. Please.
Relatives say her mother, Brandy, was also hit.
I just can't imagine what her father's going through. He done lost his little girl, and his wife is in critical condition.
The principal of Pine Hills Elementary released this recording to parents about little Tiana, who's also known as Yaya.
She was a kind and beautiful young girl with an infectious smile. She will be missed dearly.
This GoFundMe has been set up by Tiana's father to help pay for funeral expenses.
That could have been me and my child.
For neighbors, it hits too close to home.
When the little girl and her mother got shot, we heard those shots. And I immediately thought it's related to that young woman being killed.
They wonder why they didn't receive any warning about the shooter after the first incident around the corner.
I don't understand that part. You know, he should have been caught before he come back. Yeah. But to come back and kill innocent people, that's not good.
It's breaking my heart. It's different kind of when you don't know a family, but when you see them every day. See that little girl come home from school and so happy and out there breaking leaves with her mom and dad, and now she's gone.
It's just so awful. Now we're told the little girl loved gymnastics and dancing. Grief counselors will be on hand for her friends at school. Ray, back to you.
Valerie, the heartbreak in your piece is palpable, and I know as a reporter who has covered these streets for so many years, you are often tasked with that uncomfortable interview of getting a victim, getting their family. Valerie, how was it talking to this family who you could still hear the emotion and really the heartache setting in?
Yeah, it was just really tough. I actually talked to a cousin off camera, and she was outside the house sobbing, trying to make sense of this all, and talking about how beautiful this little girl was. So it was quite sad. And of course, as you saw, the neighbors that I talked to, they were also just devastated as well. Ray?
Valerie, thank you so much, and thank you so much for that story. We want to walk you now through the timeline of what happened before the afternoon situation, before that crime spree in the afternoon, before those four were shot earlier. Earlier, a 38-year-old Natasha Augustine was shot and killed on Hialeah Street. It was around 11:15 when police got the call. Deputies say she was driving around with a man when they saw the suspect and offered him a ride. They say Keith Moses got in the car and seconds later shot Augustine. Moses ran off. As we know, he was arrested later on. Moses had a lengthy criminal record at just 19 years old, and that has a lot of people asking why he was out on the streets to begin with. For more on that part of the story, let's turn to Fox 35's Marlisa Goldsmith. Marlisa?
Ray, that's the big question tonight. So many people are wondering, with such a lengthy juvenile criminal history, how was this teenager able to roam the streets freely? How was he able to do that? I can tell you in a press conference today, the state attorney's office addressed that concern that so many people have tonight. There at that press conference, we learned that 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses did have a juvenile criminal history. But under the current state of the law, jurisdiction is lost to the Department of Juvenile Justice when a child is sentenced. Now, that means that the court nor the state attorney's office has a say in what program or length of time that a child is kept in a program. State Attorney Monique Worrell of the 9th District did make it clear that by law she isn't able to discuss Moses's juvenile record. But what she was able to tell us is his only adult offense was for possession of marijuana.
4.6 grams of marijuana that my office did not charge because when you have a quantity that low, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement does not test the substance. and that means the state attorney's office cannot prove the case.
Worrell went on to explain that our system isn't quite designed to deal with children being the offenders of violent crime. It's based more on rehabilitation, and while she says that is a goal, she says there has to be more in place to reduce the likelihood of these children from committing violent crimes again. But in this legislative session, she says she's making proposals. She's now proposing that legislators change the rules when it comes to juvenile justice to extend the period of time that children can be held within these juvenile programs. Ray?
Marlisa, thank you for that insight. As those questions continue to add up, the investigation continues to unravel here at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and reaction continues to come in. I want to walk you through the tweets now that we've been monitoring in the newsroom, the reaction that's coming in from our elected representatives. Florida Representative Maxwell Frost sent out this tweet saying he is thankful to the news community for keeping everyone informed despite the tragedy, and he's sending so much love, especially to everyone at News 13. And State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith sent out this tweet saying, "May this eternal night rest in power." Luann and John.
So much tragedy. Ray, thank you.
All right, and I also had a chance to catch up with former Orlando Police Chief Orlando Rolón to get his thoughts on what's transpired in our city over the past 24 hours. One thing we talked about was repeat offenders. Chief, I've heard this time and time again in our newsroom with people out in the street, and I'm sure you hear in the law enforcement community all the time. It's the same people time and time again. You guys know them by name a lot of times, and they're the ones who are perpetrating more crimes. What do you do to stop something like this so that these guys who have so many convictions or charges in the past don't keep doing this?
Something's got to be fixed. We can't continue to have these conversations. We actually have to implement programs or take steps, the necessary steps, to address these individuals so that others thinking about doing the same will think about it twice before they commit such a crime.
Now, the chief also says that this debate over gun control, of course, will continue, but one key is for agencies to do a better job of tracking weapons in the hands of criminals so illegal guns can be taken off the streets. Well, still to come here on Fox 35 News Edge at 6, community leaders are also speaking out about that shooting, and they say they're looking for new ways to curb gun violence.